Hi, welcome to the weekly show with Mike Hayes, where we bring you news, commentary, and interviews from around the cannabis industry. Today is Friday, May 22nd, and it's our first episode. Our big story tonight is an interview with Sarah Woodson about her work in equity and helping Denver launch the cannabis home delivery market. But before we get to that, let's get to the news. Our first story today is actually a follow-up. If you watched the first video that I put out, you might recall I said something a little bit like this. Perhaps the biggest cannabis story this week is the industry's push to be included in federal bailout funds. Republican senators won't even let us have bank accounts for our money, and now we're asking them for their money? I'm not holding my breath. And if you were paying attention to the news this week, you might have seen a news story like this.
Tucked away in the new $3 trillion House coronavirus stimulus package, cannabis banking reform.
Okay, so if you don't follow the world of congressional politics, and I know I have a problem admitting it as the first step, but what you want to understand is that this bill is basically a utopian vision put out by the House of Representatives, which Democrats control. To make it out of Congress, Senate Republicans would have to approve the exact same bill, and here's what they think about that.
Neither this bill nor anything resembling it will ever become law.
So you might ask, why is this a headline? Why has a bill like this even passed if it's never going to get through the Senate? Well, the Democrats would say that they're trying to demonstrate for you what could be possible if they were in control of both houses of Congress. But what they won't say is that it's a little bit to mess with the Republicans. I mean, they get a very popular idea, they get a lot of press behind it, and then they throw it over to the Senate like, yo, pass this! You won't? It's basically the political equivalent of daring your friend to drink the bong water. It's just kind of funny to see how disgusted he is.
Cannabis industry.
But you know he's probably not going to do it. And I know, sometimes there's a kid who will drink the bong water because he's kind of gross or immature or he's just so desperate to be loved. Oh, yeah, that could work. That might happen. Also this week, High Times Magazine has made their latest pivot in a long journey towards becoming some kind of business. You know, the kind that makes money in the 21st century. Since being sold 3 years ago at a $70 million valuation, the iconic brand has changed directions more times than me trying to leave the house after I smoke a bowl. Got the phone, wait, the keys, wait, who texted me? Here's a very abbreviated rundown of what the new owner has been up to in the last few years.
Partnered with a music festival, canceled the music festival, bought Dope magazine, then they bought Culture magazine, then they shut down both of those magazines, got sued by one. Now they're buying 13 dispensaries, most of which aren't open and several of which aren't even built. Their first CEO quit, so they hired an executive from Overstock.com. 6 months later they fired her, hired a new CEO from Victoria's Secret, which is going out of business. And the whole time they've been trying to go public and pushing the date back 3 months at a time.
Now you might think, wow, buying this company must be the absolute worst idea that this guy has ever had. High Times Magazine. But only if you didn't know that his other recent investments have included Penthouse Magazine, Girls Gone Wild, and a Facebook competitor that AOL didn't want anymore. I mean, I know people that get baked and online shop, but you gotta be careful, man. But what do I know? Maybe they still will go public. If you're in the industry, you've certainly seen their IPO ads following you all over the internet. In fact, our statisticians tell us that no matter where you are viewing this video, there is a 50% likelihood that there's a High Times IPO ad touching at one of the corners. We wish them luck. And this week, the cannabis home delivery game was shaken up as a major player entered the space. You might know Drizly as the Uber-like app that's been delivering alcohol in over 100 markets since 2012. Well, now they're bringing their tech and financial resources to Lantern, a cannabis delivery pilot in Boston. Industry experts say that sophisticated delivery apps will be crucial if the legal market is going to compete with the personal touch of legacy dealers. That's why Lantern is already working on AI chatbots that can reply to texts like, "You still around?" Speaking of futuristic ideas, there was a big splash in the industry last week as serial cannabis executive George Jage launched a new kind of online conference. Yes, attendees at MJ Unpacked could sit on their couch at home while a look-alike avatar explored a virtual trade show. Now you might be thinking, wow, starting this conference must be one of the absolute best ideas this guy has ever had. Virtual avatars. But only if you didn't know that one of his other recent ideas was selling a struggling company to High Times Magazine for $11 million. Smart move, George, and good luck on the new venture. Our last story this week takes place in Mississippi, where a police officer was caught using cannabis in a patrol car on duty. He was fired, but he wasn't even charged with a crime. And look, I want to be mad about another example of police officers not being held accountable. But instead, I just keep thinking about the moment he got caught. Ooh, that must have been bad. I mean, we've all been caught smoking at the wrong time. Maybe you've been caught at work, by your boss, maybe even by the cops. But that feeling of panic must be on a different level when you realize you're getting busted behind the wheel, at work, by your boss, who's a cop, because you're also a cop. Man. Anyway, that's it for this week's Cannabis News in Brief. Coming up next, we do have this interview with Sarah Woodson. It's a great conversation. Please check it out if you're interested in cannabis, in delivery happening here in Denver, or the very important topic of equity. But first, our brand new segment, Did This Cannabis News Article Really Need That Stock Photo? Take a look.
And now, our new and possibly reoccurring segment, Did This Cannabis News Article Really Need That Stock Photo? This has been our new and possibly reoccurring segment, Did This Cannabis News Article Really Need That Stock Photo?